Hello, everyone. All right, you should be getting this in just a few moments here. We're going to wait a second, and there we go. And hello, everyone. And this is Michael Voss, the Dragon of the Southern Tier. As you can see, I am about to start having an exclusive conversation with Erick Goss. He's the CEO of Minno, and we're going to be talking about Disney Plus. We're going to be talking about alternatives to some of the media that's out there, things that are family friendly, that are just things you may not know about. And I think it's going to be a wonderful conversation. And I'm actually going to introduce my guest here with us on No Soundbites Allowed. And that happens to be Erick. Am I pronouncing the last name right? It is Goss, right?
It is Goss. Absolutely.
Okay, fantastic. I'm glad that I could get that right. And Erick is here, and people can see the photo. Erick, just to introduce people, let people know, who are we talking about? I know you're a member of, you were a former executive over at Amazon. I know you've created your own company. Tell us a little about you.
Yeah, so I'm a dad. I've been married for over 20 years, got three girls, all in their teens, and have spent most of my career. I started my career in the Navy as a helicopter, as an aviator, helicopter pilot, and then moved and was actually a spokesperson at the Pentagon, and then spent really most of the rest of my career in e-commerce and digital marketing. Was at Amazon for a while. During very formative years, I was there just shortly after they went public. And so spent 7 years at Amazon, which were very formative, was chief marketing officer for a company in Nashville, and then went on to start my own company with my co-founder. And we've created three separate companies, and this is our third one, and we're probably the most excited about this one with Minno.
Yes. And in fact, for people who don't know, Minno is the company that we're going to be speaking about, which is a streaming service, a more family-friendly, Christian-friendly streaming service. And I have to ask, what made you decide, and I think you had one other company before that was Jelly Telly, so you've been in this realm before. What made you decide this was necessary?
Yeah, well, I think first, as a father of three girls, there's a sense of what tools or what services are available to me as a dad that would allow us to be able to watch programming that reflects our values as a family. And then the second was, early on, I had the opportunity to work with Phil Vischer, who created VeggieTales, who was developing a series called Buck Denver Ask What's in the Bible that he wanted to help Christian families find, to just help them better understand the Bible. And I worked with him on that project. And in the process of working on that, I recognized it is really hard to get a show in front of a faith and values audience, because none of the major media companies want to fund them. And then it's actually become really, really challenging to reach them, because so many of the means that we've used historically to reach families that care about faith and values have really sort of disappeared. And really, when we think about a digital world, we're really talking about the world of Facebook and Google almost entirely. And so what we recognized is, if we really wanted to create a platform, well, if we really wanted families who care about faith and values to be able to find the programming they care about, we're really going to have to create our own platform, because the reality is the major digital platforms weren't going to carry that or fund it. And so we really wanted to create our own platform that not only could we provide great content and material for families, but that we could also create a financial business model that actually would allow us to be able to fund more content. Because the big issue for many creators in Hollywood and in New York is, if they care about this audience and want to create content that reflects the values of this audience, they really can't get that content funded. They can't get those shows funded. And so we really wanted to create a mechanism that would allow that creativity and that passion to be unleashed, while at the same time serving a very large portion of the United States. You know, a lot of people don't know this, but, you know, we essentially, have a Super Bowl every Sunday in the church. You know, or roughly about 100 million Americans attend church weekly, and more than that in regards to a reflection of their faith commitments. And, for those folks who want to share programming that reflects those values, there's just no place to go.
Well, that's very true. Now, I want to address this for a lot of people because they may not be familiar. The industry itself, if you're looking at Disney Plus, Netflix, Amazon, there's about $30 billion in the kids market alone in terms of streaming. And roughly, there's about 4.6 billion, as I see from some sources, about Christian products in that marketplace, with over 16 million families that have kids that are in pre-K 5th grade. So that's a huge market. You would think that a lot of people have already tapped into that market. Why do you think they haven't?
Yeah, it's interesting. Well, I would say that a lot of those families, so there's roughly about 16 to 20 million families that are attending church on a weekly basis. That number actually doubles up to around 35 to 40 million if you look at it on a monthly basis. Families that with kids preschool to say late elementary, age 10 or 11, and a lot of those families, when we talk to them, we've done extensive customer research on this. When you talk to those families, the parents are frustrated and really don't know what to do because in many ways they don't want to deprive their children of media and technology because they recognize media and technology is the future, and so they want their children to be able to participate in that. At the same time, they don't want to compromise their values, and so what they feel like is I either have to pull media and technology away from my kids and basically, prevent them getting exposed to things or getting exposed to things faster than I want them to, or I do have to expose them to that, but they're going to get exposed to ideas or things that I don't care about, and so there's a compromise. And so what's interesting is when we see customers subscribe to Minno and they have the opportunity to experience Minno, oftentimes they'll cancel their subscriptions like a Netflix subscription or a Hulu subscription because what they're really looking for is an area where they can rest easy because parents, as soon as media comes on, as soon as TVs or iPads are turned on, there's almost a sense of vigilance that ensues where they're concerned about what their children are going to be exposed to. And I think the big issue with the major studios, and granted, I worked at one of those companies at Amazon, when they're thinking about children's programming, they're really thinking about, okay, what can we do to get viewers? What can we do to do something that's entertaining? They're really not thinking about what type of values we want to expose children to and what type of relationship are we trying to support between parents and kids. One of the key issues with a lot of mainstream studio content is there's actually almost a disrespectful relationship between children and their parents.
Right.
And there's a sense of that being celebrated because it's funny, but it can actually have kind of a corrosive effect where we've had parents talk about the fact that when their kids are watching those mainstream platforms, they have discipline issues or the children will talk back. And then when they actually come on Minno, it's like all of that sort of dissipates and subsides. And so I think the big issue is, the motivation for most mainstream platforms is what can we do to create more profit and what can we do to drive more revenue? They're not really thinking about, okay, what are the stories that we're telling children? What's that communicating? And again, there's some people who care deeply, I think, in those studios that care about those things, but oftentimes they are compromised or find it frustrating because they can't do what they think is best, or they can't do what they think is best for this audience because of there are other people who are making the decisions, who are pulling the strings, who feel like, we actually need to focus on revenue, we need to focus on top line, or there's another agenda in place that they're having to be sensitive to.
Well, that's interesting that you bring that up because I know even in my lifetime, I'm 51, I remember back in the 90s, there was the show Moesha, which was very popular for a time, where you had no parents or the child was teaching the parents for the most part. And we've seen that trend happen a lot. And Disney has been very much involved with that as well. But there's also the questions about social justice that are very prevalent nowadays. And you've seen that, Disney is getting rid of, they've got content warnings about some of their older formats, whether it be Snow White or even Aladdin. And now they have new tropes like Captain Marvel. How is Minno different in the way they're approaching the content from that direction?
Yeah, so for Minno, what's most important to us is how can we provide content that's really blessing families and creating opportunity for parents to raise great kids. One thing that's super important to us when we think about programming and think about curating programming, licensing programming from other distributors, is what type of programs can we have on our platform that facilitate great conversations between parents and kids. Parents are, it's always challenging to parent. Like that's never been different throughout the generations. But this environment where parents are deluged with media and technology, and there may be greater economic stress on the family, greater cultural dynamics at school, where it used to be things were much easier to manage, and now we've got media and technology to make it much more complex. And so at Minno, what we really recognize is we want to create winning moments between parents and kids, and we want programming that can actually foster those conversations between children and parents. And we, when we're thinking about what type of programs we want to put on the platform, it really is about how can we serve those kids and expose them to the truth, and how can we expose them to programming that enhances their lives? And then how can we come alongside the parent and really give them a platform that feels like their partner in raising their kids? And we've had a lot of parents say, we're so thankful for Minno because I can finally get the dishes done and I actually feel great about what my child is watching, versus feeling a sense of compromise or feeling a little guilty over the fact that, man, I just needed to get, 15, 20 minutes or a half hour to be able to get something done. Or I can really sit down with my children and watch something that I feel like I'm excited to talk to them about because it does reflect my values, instead of, afterwards having caveats or saying, that's a great show, but. And so, in many ways, I like to say Minno is a caveat-free environment. we want parents to be able to watch shows with their children and to say, hey, that's what we believe, and let's talk about what it means for you to have that value or to understand that fact about life.
Okay. Well, something interesting I also want to address here, because I think a lot of people may be familiar. Disney Plus just launched. They were very happy to talk to people about how they had 10 million plus subscribers. A lot less happy to talk about the fact that the system crashed immediately as soon as they did that. And that they've been very happy to go out there and try to capture a market based on their movies, but they don't have a lot of other content. I mean, they want to sell toys, they want to sell their streaming program, but they don't really have anything for parents. And I know that Minno, you've spoken about, and I see on the site when I was doing my research, you guys are looking at more than just streaming and more than just trying to sell a toy per se, that you have other aspects of the Minno service.
Yeah, Michael, I really appreciate you bringing that up. It's interesting because one of the things I recognized when I first started the company and started doing research, trying to understand what our parents were looking for, and granted, we have an interesting business model because we are selling our service to parents, but our users are children. And as we talk to parents, my big concern as an entrepreneur is, man, am I solving the most important problem? Because I don't want to solve problems that don't matter. And when we talk to parents, they said, absolutely, Erick, media is a problem, but wow, I just need help because the culture feels so polarized. When I take my kids to school, they're getting exposed to a lot of ideas that I'm not ready to have those conversations yet. In many ways, what we say is parents end up having to take their children into a PG-13 world as soon as they step out the door. And so just by being in the community that they're in or in the school that they're in, they're getting exposed to ideas that they're not quite ready to have that conversation with their children. And so when we thought about, okay, what could we do to make Minno really special and really useful, it just became very clear that we needed to build out almost a parent resource center, and to be able to have blogs and white papers and just like little almost cliff notes to parenting on specific topics to help parents have something that could be a go-to resource. Some of the folks that we've brought to bear are experts in what they do. They're child counselors or help a lot with parent counseling. And as I've talked to them, what they've said is parenting has changed drastically just in the last 18 months. So a lot of the things that they saw that, for the last, 5 to 10 years, actually the environment in which parents are raising kids in is shifting so quickly that they're recognizing a lot of the strategies and a lot of the advice that they're having to give families is changing. And so we really wanted to be on top of that. And so, our perspective is, hey, we want to bring great programming to kids to be able to have an awesome platform for children, but we also wanted to be able to be a great parent partner and to put together the best resources for them. And one of the products that actually came out of that was a product that we just recently released called the Laugh and Learn Bible for Kids. That was written by VeggieTales creator Phil Vischer. And, one of the challenges for a lot of Christian parents is they don't necessarily have a great understanding of the Bible, or they feel uncomfortable in like, how do I share the Bible with my kids? And while there are a lot of great children's Bibles out there, they're not necessarily in the sense of helping a child actually understand the whole Bible, Genesis to Revelation. And so the Laugh and Learn Bible was really built with this idea of how can we expose parents to the Bible in a way that can facilitate, great conversations with their kids. And we're really excited about that. That's actually been a best-selling product at Amazon and is continuing to pick up momentum as we get up near the holidays. But it's that type of thing of what can we do to create winnable moments. I always say that there's these moments when, as a mom or as a dad, or as a grandparent, you're like, wow, I think I was just a great grandparent. I think I was just a great dad. I think I was just a great mom. And so often parents are just trying to survive. And what we're trying to do is what can we do to create the resources that have those winnable moments for parents where they're like, wow, I actually think I just did my job really, really well.
I want to ask you something, Eric, because there's a very comprehensive thought that you've put to Minno and to this promotion, to this service that you provide, both for the kids as a stream, as shows, VeggieTales, and as well as for parents in terms of instruction and help and resources, the blog that you have there. And I'm looking at this and I'm just thinking to myself, you're an adjunct professor at Vanderbilt University. You've worked in companies like Amazon. They're not really places that people would first turn around and say, hey, that's not something I would expect a religious person in. I mean, Silicon Valley is not known for its embrace of religious beliefs or individuals with religious beliefs. You don't hear about marketing about that. How has that experience influenced Minno?
Yeah, and Michael, just to clarify, what you're asking is how's my experience in sort of these mainstream, what most people call secular organizations influenced how I think about Minno? Is that what you're asking?
Yes.
Yeah, so it's interesting, and I think a lot of this is sort of in my DNA and sort of the DNA of the company. Mm-hmm. Is what can we do? So the best thing about working about Amazon and being in a college environment like Vanderbilt is these are world-class organizations. And, I had the opportunity, Amazon was small enough that I actually interacted with Jeff Bezos a couple of times. And then a lot of the people that are running that company day to day today, I actually kind of grew up professionally with them.
Wow.
And, one of the things I feel like is so important is we have to be committed to excellence in every aspect of our lives. The other thing is, as a person of faith who's really thinking about building a company in this environment, you kind of need to know how those big companies think, because oftentimes I find that people can be somewhat naive or immature in their thinking from a business standpoint because they assume certain things are going to happen, and the reality is they don't recognize that the deck is stacked against them, or that there are different ways to kind of maneuver. And so I feel like what it's done for me is helped me understand, look, if we're going to do something and we want it to matter, we want to have a high bar for how we think about things. We believe that because, and actually I personally believe because I am a Christian and because God has given us the opportunity to do this, that's what he expects of me, in the sense of, I want to do this well to honor him, but also I want to do this well to be a blessing to other people. And so that DNA sort of is in the company. And I think most people who interact with our staff would say, this is a well-run, thoughtful company in regards to how it's being, how it's executing. At the same time, we recognize, one of the reasons I left Amazon was because I didn't feel like I could embody the culture fully, because as a person of faith, there are just certain things there that I just felt like, if I want to really serve Amazon and be my best at Amazon, I need to embrace some of these values fully. And I just felt like, I think it's better for me to go try to create a company on my own, where I can say, this is what I think is true about work. This is what I think is true about people. And this is what I think is true about being excellent in the world.
Okay. Let me ask you this, because I looked at the site. I've been looking over it. I've been listening to you very carefully. And I know there's a bunch of people out there who may say, this sounds really great for me, for my kids. I want help with parenting. I want to have something that I can show my kids that's healthy, that'll let them grow, and I don't have to worry about what's being said, how it may undermine my family, but they're not religious. Does Minno still appeal to those who are not Christian or are not religious?
Yeah, so I'd say today we're primarily focused on Christian families, because that's an audience and area that we know. We have a lot of programming. So, for example, a good show that I think a lot of families that might have that narrative, that story, those were families, say, 20 years ago that were actually watching VeggieTales,
right? Because
VeggieTales expressed faith, but it expressed, more in regards to values that, conservative families care deeply about. And so I know a lot of folks who aren't necessarily Christians, who love VeggieTales and really view that series with a lot of affection. And we've got the largest collection of VeggieTales in the world today. So you actually can come and see classic VeggieTales on Minno, and those episodes are actually not available anywhere else for viewing and for streaming. And so I think in the future, and again, part of this is, focus on what you know and where you can get early wins. We've really focused on sort of the faith audience to get started. Our expectation is really to expand out. And we really want to serve those families because we recognize that there are a lot of families who may not necessarily have deep Christian convictions, but they care about faith. They want their children to know about faith. But more importantly, they just want to make sure that their children are not being exposed to agenda that doesn't resonate with them and how they want to raise their kids. And that's the type of programming that I think is really in our future as we go forward. We always want to be able to serve our families that have strong faith convictions. That's important to us. That's part of our identity. But we recognize if we really want to be able to serve the greatest number of people possible, we want to be able to expand that programming out and have programming that reflects, things around virtue and around character that conservative families who may not necessarily be Christian care deeply about.
Okay. Now, I want to address something else as well, because it's been said a lot about Disney Plus, the fact that it's $7 a month, and you get this huge or somewhat huge, because a lot of the catalog that is owned by Disney isn't available. A lot of family-friendly content from the past and even the present is not available. But I see that for Minno, you do have the same pricing, $7. So it's, in terms of price point, you're getting the same cost, but it sounds like it's more family-friendly. It's more accessible to parents for their needs as well. Let me ask you, how many shows, what's the catalog like? We know it's VeggieTales, an exclusive with the biggest catalog there. What else are some of the things that you can offer with that $7?
Yeah. So for $7, we've got I think we've got close to 2,000 different episodes or shows, and there are over probably 150 different shows that are on Minno today. We really don't look at it as more is better. So when you actually talk to parents, they're actually confused with lots of choices. There's complexity associated with navigating a huge catalog. And so our perspective is, what can we do to curate the best shows in different categories for families so they can get exposed to the best? And so when they come to Minno, they're really getting a curated experience where there's a lot of shows that some people say, oh, you should carry this. And we just we didn't feel like it reflected the quality or the values that we felt like our parents would care deeply about. And so when we're priced at $6.99, the other component to this, there's one sense where that may seem expensive to some folks and inexpensive to other folks. I know when you compare it to Disney, that's a great value that you get with Disney for $6.99. But Disney's strategy on that is basically, they have been dependent upon other platforms to distribute their content, and they haven't been connected to those customers. And so one of the reasons Disney priced at $6.99 so inexpensively was to basically create an opportunity to speak directly to customers, to be able to sell them, toys, licensed products, and get them to come to parks. And so in many ways, Disney is subsidizing their service for the purpose of actually monetizing or making money in other categories, which is a great business strategy.
True.
For Minno, our perspective is, what can we do to create a curated experience? And we think for our parents that it's a great value relative to buying DVDs or having to buy pieces of content separately. The other thing is we're unique in the marketplace in the fact that you can download content from Minno and you can have it on, any device that you have for portability's sake. And so we feel like we've built a lot of value in that. And granted, there are a lot of services that are a lot more expensive than us if you think about Hulu, Netflix, and Amazon.
Yeah.
But we feel like we've got a really good catalog. And then the other issue that comes up with children's programming is a little different than say a Disney Plus is. Most of our parents don't want their kids binge watching. They want us to be able to say, hey, here's what would be a good kind of some good options for your children. And so what we find is most of our they're using Minno on a daily and weekly basis, but we don't really see binge watching taking place in the kids that are using our service today.
The kids get to do other things than just watch a screen.
Yeah, actually, we spent a lot of time talking as a company, like what can we do to make Minno really well, but then also what can we do to serve parents by, encouraging them to keep their kids, off screen as well, because we think that off screen behavior interaction with families is important, if not more important, than the screen time itself.
Well, you've done a lot of research, a lot of work here to work for families as much as for the kids. It's not just about streaming content. And I think that's really important. I think that's really commendable. I thank you for that. We only have a couple more minutes here left, but I want to make sure, I want to ask, what's the target age group that you think or so far have been very attracted to this? But also, I want you to add in, is there something that I've missed? Is there something I haven't covered so far?
Yeah, so today, if you look at our target age group and where most of our subscribers' children are, it's usually preschool to late elementary, so 10 to 12 years old. And we've got programming, from that preschool market all the way up to late elementary. And I think it's been a good interview. I think, if parents are looking for something that has a strong faith expression, and they're looking for a place that's compromise free, where it's not, they don't have to be vigilant and they just want a break. And they're looking for something to kind of help them instill values in their kids. Minno, I think, is a great place. And that's why we built it, was to really solve that problem for parents who are looking for another option in the marketplace. And so, and also thinking not just streaming, but looking at resources, looking at books, looking at, really trying to curate the best voices to help parents today.
I think that's very important. For the parents that are very interested about this, anyone who wants to find out more, you're available. There's apps that are available. Is that just on, or where is that available?
Yeah, so if they're interested in Minno or checking it out, we offer a 7-day free trial. They can go to our website, gominno.com. That's GOMINNO.com, or they can go to Apple, Amazon, or Google, or Roku and download our app there and subscribe via those services if they'd like to take advantage of the in-app purchasing that those services provide.
Okay, so it sounds like it's easily accessible for everybody, that it's something that's readily available right now, and they can go out and get a subscription right this moment. I hope people do. I think we've covered a lot of ground here, letting people know about this alternative to Hulu, to Netflix, to even Disney Plus, in being family friendly, helping out parents, and just having good entertainment. I hope we're going to hear a lot more about you guys. I definitely want to stay in touch with you about this, and hopefully we can follow up again in a couple of months after the holidays, see how it's going.
That'd be great, Michael. We'd love it.
Absolutely. By the way, Eric, to you and your family, I hope you're all going to have a great Thanksgiving, a wonderful Christmas, and I'm looking forward to speaking with you all again very soon.
Thanks, Michael. Appreciate you having us on today.
You're very welcome. All right. And folks, that's talking to Erick Goss of Minno, the CEO. We're going to be coming back with you with more information very soon, but I hope you've enjoyed this. Please do get in touch with them about any questions you may have. We're looking forward to hearing what your thoughts are about this interview and when we follow up with Eric again in the future. So until then, I want to thank everyone, and I hope you're going to be very well. Bye-bye.